I met Hillary Rodham at Dorothy Leichel's dance studio in downtown Park Ridge, Illinois, when we were 8 years old. I might add, a very long time ago. There, at Dorothy Leichel's, over several years, we learned about first position, second position, followed by toe, and even tap, where we shuffled off to Buffalo. We also grew to know each other at the First United Methodist Church. With our mothers in the same church circle, there was Sunday school and Bible class, carpooling to help the needy in Chicago's inner city, attending retreats at the Methodist campground or in Lake Geneva, and working with disadvantaged kids on Chicago's South Side. Our church experience culminated in 8th grade when we were part of the same confirmation class. In high school, at Maine East and then Maine South, Hillary and I were focused on the serious side. Good grades, accomplishing things, and became members of the National Honor Society. We were even Goldwater girls together, and she became interested in issues of the world and in government, while I was just trying to get good grades. Hillary ran for student council and then class president. I always did think she was the strongest leader I knew, an independent thinker who made up her own mind and did the right thing. When we went off to college, Hillary took this giant step and went over the Allegheny Mountains to a place we'd never heard of, Wellesley College, an exclusive all-women's school on the East Coast. I stayed in safer territory in the Midwest with most of our friends and went to a Big Ten university. Following graduation, I married my high school sweetheart and headed into teaching and the U.S. Air Force as an Air Force bride. Hillary, on the other hand, was featured in Time magazine with her outspoken commencement address at Wellesley. Following graduation, Hillary enrolled in Yale Law School, where she met Bill Clinton from Little Rock, Arkansas. The rest is history. It is with incredible admiration and love and respect that I am honored to introduce to you one of the greatest leaders of our time, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. I was getting very distracted backstage watching the video that we had there of Ann and Donna making their remarks, because it really was a walk down memory lane. Both of these women, who I hope all of you have gotten to know over the course of your involvement with IWF, are just so remarkable. And I say that not just because they're my friends, and as Ann told you, I've known her since I was 8. I probably have known Donna since I was 28. But it has been a joy to have them in my life over all of those years. So I thank them from the bottom of my heart. I also want to thank your president, Teresa Weintraub, as well. Yes, let's give Teresa another round of applause. As well as the co-chairs of this really wonderful event, former Houston Mayor Anise Parker and Gracie Kavnar. And I just had a chance to visit with another good friend of mine, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who is fighting so hard for her constituents. And also I saw current Mayor Sylvester, as I call him, because he is somebody that I want to support as Houston recovers from Harvey. I'm really happy to be here in Houston. Now, you may have noticed when I walked out, I have my foot in a boot. Yes, it was a really silly trip on some stairs a couple of weeks ago, and I have to wear this thing for, I don't know, 6 weeks or something. And my doctor, who I love, said to me, all right, you know the drill, RICE, right? Rest and ice and compress and elevate. So you should just stay at home and do all of that. I said, well, in addition to RICE, there's IWF. And so, no, I can't stay at home. I want to be in Houston on that night. And especially to pay tribute to this great city, which has been showing real compassion and resilience from the effects of Hurricane Harvey. I met with a pastor and his wife and a family that had the unthinkable happen to them, losing 6 members of their family as their van got flooded out. So it's really, for me personally, meaningful to be here. And of course, the World Series is going on as we speak, so you know, the Astros come back, Houston's come back, it all is very exciting and reassuring, and I am thrilled to have this chance to speak to this organization and to receive this award from you. Now, I am proud to say that I have been an honorary International Women's Forum member for more than 30 years. Yes, right. Going back to my time as a practicing lawyer and First Lady of Arkansas. When I was First Lady of the United States, I welcomed the International Women's Forum to the White House. I don't know if any of you were there at that time. And back in 1995, as you came together in Atlanta, I had the chance to congratulate some of the participants in a new and innovative program, the Leadership Foundation Fellows, right? And that program, like this organization, is now a global endeavor. But I have to say that the person who embodied the spirit of IWF for me, really a legend, is one of your founding members, Ellie Guggenheimer. I got to know Ellie, so long ago because she was a great champion of affordable childcare. And she was also somebody who just was a dynamo in New York. She was a city commissioner when she was asked by then Mayor John Lindsay back in the 60s to travel to Philadelphia for a meeting about some issues that the city was interested in. So when she arrived in Philadelphia, she discovered the meeting she was supposed to attend on behalf of the mayor was taking place in a men's club. And the club informed her she wasn't welcome, since the only women allowed inside were the maids. Undeterred, Ellie managed to track down a maid's uniform, put it on, and go to the meeting. But that experience, being turned away at that club, inspired her to start the original Women's Forum in New York. Now, that story does not surprise me one bit because I knew Ellie was a force of nature, but I've seen over and over again that when women are willing to roll up our sleeves and get to work, we get the job done. And so this room is filled with women who are exemplars of that. Now, I was thinking about the moments that I can recall from not just my association with the forum, but some of the challenges that I have faced, which were alluded to in the video. I have a new book called What Happened, because I wanted to pull the curtain back on the 2016 presidential election and talk about some of the moments that frustrated me, as well as those challenges that we still face as a country. And a lot of it comes down to how and whether women will be respected, whether our rights, our dignity will be respected. And so in this, I talk about what it was like in the book to stand on the stage at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia and become the first woman nominated. I talk about thank you, yeah, and it also makes me feel great because I won Houston and Harris County, so, you know, it's another great feeling. But I write in the book, and I have a whole chapter, and of course it's also scattered through the book, about sexism and misogyny. And I firmly believe the only way we're going to get sexism out of politics is to get more women into politics. And I don't think that just applies to politics. I think it applies to every industry, and I don't think it just applies to the United States. I think it applies to every nation. You know, women have made enormous progress since the founding of the International Women's Forum, certainly since I was a young woman. I remember writing to NASA, hoping I could be an astronaut, and, you know, being told that no, girls were not going to be accepted into the program. And then I saw pictures of women astronauts and explorers as you were running through the honorees. And I would be really proud if my 13-year-old self were here, because to be in the presence of Dr. Ellen Ochoyu, I was thrilled that you are honoring her. I was thrilled that as part of this week's convention, 100 8th grade girls from a STEM middle school here in Houston are being speed mentored by women working in STEM fields, because we have got to create those relationships to break down barriers. Now, beyond science and technology, of course, we've seen a lot of strides for women in education and careers, and every one of you is proof of that. But I think it's also still fair to say, as a great Texan, a former friend of mine, Ann Richards, famously said, if you give us a chance, women can perform. After all, Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did. She just did it backwards and in high heels. And I think it's good to remind ourselves that, because to this day, there is a woeful lack of women in the upper reaches of science and technology, business and finance, not to mention politics and government. And across the private sector, women, particularly women of color, still struggle for representation in the C-suite and the boardroom. And women receive only a fraction of the venture capital that men do. And as we have been reminded in recent weeks, too many women still face the scourge of sexual harassment in the workplace. Now, I was really struck by a study that was just published by the Harvard Business Review. And here's what it said. It looked at one company where women were underrepresented in upper management. And instead of just taking the usual excuses, well, you know, women have other responsibilities, or women don't seek out mentoring, or women don't socialize, things we've heard for years, they put sensors on women and men. And they studied where both went, who they met with, and how often they spoke up in a meeting. It turned out that the work patterns of these men and women in this company were identical. It wasn't women's actions that were holding them back. It was bias against women that was holding them back. And the real lesson there, I think, is that we've got to do a much better job forcing the conversation about implicit bias. I write about that in the book. I also write about what we are now calling emotional labor, because the fact is, as we all know, caretaking and unpaid labor is something that we primarily perform. And so we've got to have that conversation and not let people push it back or put it down as though it somehow is marginal to women's progress and women's opportunities. And I think the leaders in this room from all over the world are uniquely positioned to confront these challenges head-on by championing workplaces that are fairer and more equal, by standing up for people's rights to be heard in meetings and get the assignments that they're qualified for. But we can't just have the burdens of confronting sexism and bias on the shoulders of women. We've got to reach out and have more male allies. And there are so many there, but a lot of them are just not as tuned in to what is actually going on. So I bet everyone in this room has had the experience of saying something in a meeting that gets ignored. Then a few minutes later, a man says the same thing and everybody responds, right? Well, when I was in the Obama administration as Secretary of State, I knew that women in the White House were facing this, even though, there were a lot of, very nice, enlightened, wonderful men in these meetings. And so the women got together to surface this and try to stop it from happening. So when someone made a smart point, the other women in the room would all speak up to reinforce her, right? I love this idea. And so, I started doing it, even though I was running the meetings in the State Department. I often saw that women would put forth an idea and it would not get any response. And so I would always say, well, that is a really interesting idea, Ellen or Cheryl or whomever it might be. So it's not enough, I don't think, for women like us here at the forum to climb the career ladder. We have to lift others up, particularly young women. And I know there are young women here tonight. And that's why I'm thrilled that what you're doing with the advice and counsel and mentoring, which is at the heart of your foundation, is so critically important because of who you are and what you've achieved. I have so many young women asking for my advice all the time. A lot of them ask about whether they should run for office or how to, present themselves in a way to get a promotion, things that, I think a lot of us here have had some experience in, and I've seen the importance of mentoring in my own life and the difference that it can make. Donna mentioned one of my great mentors, Marian Wright Edelman, who taught me about the importance of service and of lifting up the most vulnerable among us, particularly children. She challenged me, encouraged me. She really did set me on my life's path. And I've grown as well through my relationships with the women that I've employed and the women I've worked with. It's expanded my horizons, and I hope it's also helped them. So when young women started reaching out to me after the election, they were telling me not to give up or grow weary. I thought, okay, I'll take that advice on board. And then I had to tell them, and don't you either. When you stand up and speak out against injustice or something you believe is wrong, it's exhausting. It can get really tiring. But we cannot give up or give in when people are not being treated justly. We have to stand up and use the voices that we have to advance the rights and opportunities of women. The clip of me in that pink suit with my long hair at the Beijing conference talking about women's rights, that was just a part of a long speech talking about the many ways that women are held back, undermined, even hurt. And we know, and decades of data confirm, that encouraging women's full participation in the economic, political, and social lives of our communities and our nations is not only the right thing to do, it's really smart. And I tried to do that as Secretary of State, to go to 112 countries and speak out about women and families and encourage countries to embrace the full rights that women deserve to have, to try to tackle poverty and increase economic output by getting more women into school and getting more women into the workforce. It's also true that when women are actually at peace tables, countries are more likely to reach agreements to end conflicts, and those agreements are more long-lasting. So there's a lot that we have to explain and demonstrate to ourselves and to those around us, because there is no shortage of problems for us to face. Our problems transcend borders. They cut across industries. Some of them have political solutions. Others require bringing people together to search for them. So when you work together, as you are, to take on issues like human trafficking, pandemics, the urgent challenge of climate change, the global refugee crisis, and so much more, you're not only creating a support network for yourselves in doing that work, you really are part of a vast worldwide network of problem solvers. I want to be on the side of the problem solvers, not the problem explainers or the problem exaggerators. I want to be with those people who are literally rolling up those sleeves and getting to work together. So I thank you. I thank this organization and all who are part of it. I thank the rising tide of women in the U.S. and around the globe who are speaking up and speaking out. We need to support each other, brave women coming forward every single day to express the truth of their own lives and experience. And I hope that we remember how important it is to bring young women along with us. Now, since the 2016 election, more than 19,000 women have signed up to run for office in America. I am thrilled by that, and I'm going to do everything I can to help them succeed. Some of you may have watched the recent series based on The Handmaid's Tale. Now, there's a lot about that seems eerily relevant today. But Margaret Atwood, the prescient author, once wrote, "We still think of a powerful man as a born leader and a powerful woman as an anomaly. That must change." And so I know that each and every one of you from across the world will do your part because of the life you have led, the success you have achieved, to make it clear that it's not just about us. It's about all those women whose voices won't be heard unless we speak up for them. It's about all those young girls who, in our country at least, by the age of 6, think boys are smarter than they are, and they haven't even started school. It's about all those young women who are worried that they're not thin enough and they're not cool enough, and everybody else on social media has better lives than they do, which is a poison that eats at their confidence and their dreams. So we all, in our own lives, our families, and our communities, have a role to play in lifting up all women and honoring the success that they can have with the help and support of women like us. So thank you for this tremendous honor and for what you do every single day. Thank you, IWF. Thank you. Thank you all.